And the first thing is to do this thingy. I'm on A9 on both of them. So I'm gonna kill this guy. And then kill it. So let's go through the assignments and kind of do the solutions to all the assignments just to have official solutions. And then we'll start talking a little bit about the review. I have posted I had a review for the final with solutions, and I also have 2 finals. So maybe on Wednesday we'll go through one of them.
So is the final everything equally, or is it kind of more heavy towards the...
It is more heavy towards the end because it covers everything, right? I mean, if you think about it, if I ask you to do a for loop to iterate over, right? It's more, rather than asking you to do a for loop to add numbers, right? I'm going to ask you to do something with an array, right? You have an array of objects and you have to find the maximum. You are doing for loops and arrays and objects. So it's a lot easier to do it that I'm assuming that you know everything. I tend to do 1 or 2 super easy questions just cause, but for the most part it is like, okay, this max tree takes 3 ints and returns an int. So this is kind of only, right? Then create a variable M1 will contain a hash map, so this is already, right, it's maps. Given an interface iProduct, create a class, blah, blah, blah. So given the class above, write code to create a variable, write a function, remove cheap product, takes a list of iProduct, right? Write a function, highest price product that takes an array of iProduct. So, yeah. But if you think about it, a lot of this stuff is, right? You need to use if statements, and you need to use for loops, and you need to use, so, yeah. There is no point in asking you 100 questions. I just, and it is code, and it's kind of like the, I try to do it, I try as hard as I can to not make the questions tricky. Like, I will not require you to come up with a creative solution or anything like that. It should be drop and give me 20.
Do you know how to do the basics and all this stuff?
Yes, can you program, right? And you don't have to come up with a cool, clever algorithm. It's gonna do max or min or, right? I mean, kind of the kind of stuff that we have been doing forever. Did I do, this is the one that I looked, right? This is the other one. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll look at one of them next class and kind of solve it in here, but it's basically, if you did the assignments and kind of go through them, you should be able to do this. Kind of like the midterm. It's not anything groundbreaking. You don't have to come up with new solutions. Just kind of go through a list and do this or that. So, go back. Let's do assignment 9. We have an interface I-shape and a rectangle class, you needed to do a circle class. No, that one was there. You need to create a square class, right? No, I'm already in insert. So we need to keep the length of the side. Our constructor, we do that. Our get side would be now return side. Get area is side times side. And get perimeter is 4 times side, right? Let's do this just to make it pretty. This one I never tested it, so it should be whatever you want. And okay, square with side. Now, you needed to create a class regular polygon that implemented all of that stuff, right? Let me do, oh, I can cheat, Maybe I cannot cheat. Let me get this. No, I cannot cheat. Okay. I'll do it from memory. Actually, I'll do it from memory. Public class regular polygon implements iShape. You needed a constructor with 3 things, right? Int num sides. Oh, and should this be an int or a double? They're all doubles, so this one should be a double, right? This side for the square. Int num sides, and this should be double side, and app put them with horrible stuff somewhere. App put them. The Spanish word is it's messing me up because it has different weird letters that don't make any sense somewhere in the middle. This one has the H, the Spanish word has a G somewhere. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know Spanish anymore. Oh, we need a constructor, right? Public regular polygon int num sides double side double. The perimeter is the number of sides times the side. and then add override. Oh, this should be public. Ah! I'm not gonna implement it. And then we can come here, try this, and see what happens. Oh, the class cannot be public. It needs to be static. Could be public, but it needs to be. Oh. Oh, if I don't make it public, then it works. Ha! Works for me. Java usually likes you to have each class in its own file with the same name as the class. But so, okay, we implemented the things. Now it compiles, right? Any questions on these pieces? This was implementing classes. By now it should be incredibly easy because you have implemented 7 other classes after this. But at the time you were, you needed to add stuff here so that you could return those things. So, square. We call it poly just to be lazy. So now I would have circle, rectangle, square, and poly. And that would allow me to do those things. Now get average area, right? I have shapes, so I just need to do int sum equals 0, not int, double. I need to go through my array of shapes, right? For I shape s in shapes, sum plus equals s dot get area. And then in the end, I return sum divided by shapes dot length. This. And maybe now I'll get 80 or a compiler error. Possible lossy conversion from double to int. Yes, I understand it's possibly lossy. Make it so. I think this will shut it up. Oops. Okay. That makes perfect sense. Score only takes one parameter. Yay, and now we got 80. And get perimeter is basically the same thing, but calling get perimeter, right? So return sum divided by shapes dot length. Get perimeter, thank you. And so this one again, right, is so you are using what are we using here? How do we call this fancy stuff? I'm using an eye shape, and depending on whether it's a rectangle or a square, right, the right method gets called. What do we call that? Inheritance is when you're declaring this stuff, right? But this is kind of related, very related to inheritance. Nobody remembers? It's in every freaking job interview. Memorize this stuff. No. Polymorphism. It's in every freaking job interview, so you probably want to memorize it. I mean, truly. So it is very related to inheritance. Inheritance is the fact that if you had other methods on the base class, the lower class gets it. And polymorphism is this idea that you can actually change the methods. So yes, it is inheritance, but officially it's polymorphism.
What are the other two?
Sorry?
What are the other two? It's polymorphism and
Inheritance, polymorphism, and encapsulation. What's encapsulation? I'm preparing you for job interviews. They're going to ask you that stuff. What's encapsulation?
container policy.
Some private variables are protected from being modified.
That's one way of looking at it, right? It's the fact that you have the data and the methods together into one thing. And the fact that the data is private allows you to only give an interface, right? Only give the public stuff. Yeah, it's very related to the idea of private and public. Those are kind of the main object-oriented things. Encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. And yeah, I think it's been in every job interview that I've made in the last 2 years, because I haven't done any before that. I haven't done, before 2 years it was 10 or 15 or something like that. But, and I know that we ask you this kind of stuff when we interview people. So. Any questions on assignment 9 or the solutions? So, right, this, you should be able to define classes, you should be able to understand and use inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation, right? You did, because you did the assignment. It's just probably a very good idea to also know the names of those things. Assignment 10 is the one that a lot of people had trouble with. It's actually super simple, right? But you need to understand what you're doing. And in a way, types with collections are like units in physics, right? If you understand your units, every physics problem is super easy, right? Because there's only one way to do it, to get the right unit, so you know what you're multiplying and what you're dividing. Once you understand that stuff, it's super easy. It's very similar here with types, right? We have a review class that doesn't do much, just contains the review text and the number of stars. And since I tend to be lazy, and it actually makes sense in many cases, those things are public, right? There is no need to encapsulate anything. It's just a container for those two fields. The game info class is similar to the one on assignment 9 that we did with arrays, but this time we are doing it with, this is 10, so 7 was arrays, right? Or 8 was arrays. But here you need to use an array list, right? The game info is going to keep a bunch of reviews attached to a game, right? So it has the title of the game, and then it's going to keep track of those reviews. So we need an array list, actually list of review slightly nicer if you declare it as a list rather than an array list, but you can do it either way. I gave you this stuff. You don't need to do this since we are doing it here, right? So how do we add a review to the array? Now it's super easy, right? The array list just gives us the thing, right? The list gives us the thing. Get number of reviews. It's almost super easy. Except that you need to remember what the heck they call it. I think on collections is size. On arrays is length. It's just to confuse you, I mean. Actually, let me try this just so we have stuff, right? I tend to do my coding in tiny steps and compile all the time, because that way if I mess up, it's very easy to know where did I mess up. Get sum of stars. I just need to go through all the reviews and add up the stars, right? For review are in reviews, sum plus equals number of stars or num stars. Autocomplete is so nice. Number of stars. This one is need to make this stuff. Yeah. Good. In fact, if you did this way in your assignment 9, this was already done. Yeah. Oh well. Now we should get more than 15 points, right? Shouldn't have gotten out of there. This is not number of stars, but r dot number of stars, right? Woohoo! And this is what confused a lot of people, because now we have more types, right? Here we are having game info collection, so we are having a collection of game infos, and each game info contains a bunch of reviews, right? And the idea is that you use the title of the game to index that collection, right? So we're going to have a map, from string to game info. Call it games or something like that. To add a game review, right, what we kind of want to do is games.get game title dot add review r, right? Get the game info. That's what games.get of game title will tell us. Then we add the review, except that we may not have already a game info. Right? So if it's the first review, we need to do special stuff. So if games.contains key, if it's there, then we just add it. But if it's not there, then we need to do special stuff, right? That's create a game info, add the review, and then put it in the map, right? So now this became super easy because it's just games of game title dot get number of reviews, or what was that? Get number of reviews, right? And this one is games game title dot get average star rating. I am an idiot. I think that I'm programming in a decent programming language, and I'm not. It's Java. Games dot get game title. Java doesn't have operator overloading. Every other language does, and so. Okay. Oh, games.put, I need to put, what do I put, right? So it is telling me that this is wrong because I need to do game title. Hopefully. Calculate the product of a list of ints. So that's kind of your standard, go through every element of a list. Any questions on this one? I know many of you struggled, but I think everybody got it in the end, right? It is kind of keep track of your types, keep track of what you're mapping to, right? This one ends up being a hard assignment, not so much for the code is 5 lines, but for keeping track of all that, right? And you are actually using encapsulation. Your game info contains a bunch of reviews, all of that stuff. So that's what makes it hard. But ideally, once you have done with this, you can do some of this kind of stuff. And then assignment 11 was super easy. Right? Because I had run out of steam when I was doing this. I give you sample code to read all ints from a file, right? And this can throw exceptions, right? Now, this one is implement the same stuff, but reading doubles instead of ints, right? So we can basically cut and paste this stuff from there. Unix kind of popularized this idea of streams, right? It's just a bunch of bytes, and you can just read bytes from there. We have input streams and output streams depending on whether you read bytes or write bytes to them, and we have file input streams because they are reading from a file, and Java, after a bunch of things, has a scanner class that allows us to read more than just bytes. So basically has a level of abstraction on top of that that reads ints and things like that, right? So while s.has next double, and with some luck, I'll get 50 points. Yay! And this one needs to get all ints from a file, right? Add them all up and return 0 if you get an exception. Many of you did duplicate, cut and paste the code from read all ints, right? But we can actually do array list of int and then int sum equals 0. Yeah, because we don't have it here, right? For int I in ints sum plus equal I, and then return sum. And this would almost work, except that it doesn't catch exceptions, right? So in fact, Java is going to complain and tell me actually more stuff. Cannot find symbol file name because I probably need a capital N. Yeah. mistype it. Did I use the wrong name? Read all ints from file. Did I spell inst? Yeah, autocomplete is so nice. Okay, now it's telling me the right stuff, right? You may throw a file not found exception and you're not catching it. We could, depending on we need to use a try, right? We could put it around just the read all int from file, but then we would need to declare the variable outside this way. And we could catch the exceptions individually or just do this. And this catches anything.
So is exception that states the specific type of exception?
Exception is a class, right? And so it will catch any instance of the exception class or any of its subclasses. And so both file not found exception and both of these two guys, file not found exception and IO exception, are instances of the exception class. So it appears to be magic because it's the exact same term that we use, right? Because it's the concept kind of exception, but it's really just a class.
So does that open up like a hidden class that we can't see?
Sorry?
Is that so that you're saying that opens up a class we can't see?
You can see it. It's the exception class. In fact, we just included it in one of these guys. Yeah. It is java.lang.exception. And it actually inherits from throwable, which is the highest thing that we can throw. So it is slightly magical, but not quite magical. I think with this we got the whole thing. Yay! Any questions on these assignments?
So just as like a recap for interfaces, you say the original polymorph class, like iShapes, and then implements, and then whatever you wanted to do.
Okay, we have interfaces and classes. You can if you have a class that implements an interface, then you would call it, right? You'd say implement.
And then you say public, and then whatever.
Yep. One sec. Let's do.
And you have to make sure you put override.
You don't have to. Let's go do that stuff again, right?
Okay.
Actually, let's do that stuff with here. Sorry. Let's do that stuff in here where we have. I was being a masochistic for no particular reason. We can open recent. You can have create a new package. It's just tiny. Oops. Okay. So let me create a class. I'm gonna cheat and not and define everything inside here and not make it public, rather than do a bunch of different files. Normally you would have a bunch of different files, right? So we can have an interface doer, which has or didn't do public void do stuff. Actually, interface is iDoer, right? I can have a class base doer. Now say implements iDoer. Base doer the new base doer. And so I can edit configurations, do inheritance examples, right? And run it, and it will print base doing stuff, right?
Yeah.
Then we can go do more stuff. We can also, now the add override is more so the compiler tells us whether we are overriding. So if I do add, I can define other methods that are not part of the interface. So I can do public void foo.
But you don't need to override.
I'm not overriding, right? So I cannot put at override. In fact, if I put at override, it's gonna tell me, no, you're wrong. You're telling me that you're overriding, but you're not. And that's kind of the point of using at override, is to have the compiler slap your hand if you're doing the wrong thing. It's just kind of an extra check. We can also do class evil doer. And here we can either do, depending on what we are doing, we could implement the interface, or we could extend the class. One, we are just, right, going from the interface, the other one, we are going from the class. So if we do extend base doer, this should work. this is a subclass of base doer. Right? I could do implement iDoer. My implementation is the same, right? Implements. Because I'm not using any other methods, right? If this guy had other methods, right? Now, this class cannot do other stuff, it can only do stuff. And actually, this code would not work because I'm declaring this as a base doer instead of as an iDoer. Which is why you try to define your variables as high up on the hierarchy as you can. So depending on whether you are extending another class or inheriting, yeah. Implementing an interface, you do extensor. And actually, we could have interface other doer, other doer, extends doer, void do other stuff. So now, which methods does other doer have?
Do stuff.
Do stuff and do other stuff. Right? It has do other stuff because it said it here, and then it has do stuff because it's extending add-doer. Right? So this guy could have. So here we would need to implement, or we can just extend as we had before, right? Base doer. And here's kind of the difference between inheritance and polymorphism, right? I can call do stuff, and through polymorphism, it executes the do stuff from the evildoer class, because D is an evildoer at runtime. And then I can call do other stuff, and this will execute the do other stuff method of the base doer class.
So how are you able to do D dot do stuff?
D dot do stuff, right? D is an other doer, right? So D has a do stuff method, right? Now,
D is the other doer?
sorry?
D is the other doer?
D is this variable.
Oh yeah, okay, I see it now. So it's an evil doer.
But since I initialized it to an instance of an evildoer, right? When I call d.do stuff, it's gonna do this guy rather than this guy. So that is runtime polymorphism. That is the idea of at runtime you don't know what it is, you just do the right method. It's actually probably even clearer if I call this a base doer. Even though it's a base doer, since at runtime it's an evil doer, it's going to do the do stuff from the evil doer class rather than the base doer class. Yes, sorry. After a break, I don't have any imagination for examples. do stuff it is. Does this make sense? Did this help? And so you know that I'm going to ask you that stuff, right? I mean, you know that there's going to be, given this interface, define a class, or given this class, define a subclass, that kind of stuff, right? That's guaranteed. Any other questions? Any other topics that are hard? No? We're all good? Cool. Then I think we can leave early today. And next class we will actually solve one of the sample finals from a previous incarnation. And then we'll go over that solution. If you are online, or if you're not, we will have the final exam for most of the in-class people on Monday the 5th, a week from today, right here at this time. Well, actually at 6:30. Don't come at this time. If you are online and that's convenient for you, feel free to come at that time. We will also have kind of a special session on Sunday the 11th at 2 p.m. And normally torture the online people by having kind of an inconvenient time, but that is okay for everybody. If any of the people in the class prefer to take that extra week to study and come at that time, that's cool, just let me know and come at that time. It's usually okay if you know that like you're not going to work that week and so you can actually spend the time or something like that, right? If it only means that you're going to be reviewing on Friday night instead of reviewing on Sunday night, it's not, right? It's not worth it. But if the extra few days help, by all means use it. And then if neither one of those works for you, or if you are in a different place, then we can do online stuff, online proctoring and things like that. Cool. Then I will see you guys on Wednesday, and then maybe next Monday.